What in the world? How? That is so tortured. That
Like
argument.
what defines an ambiguous encounter? You know,
He's
like
making an assumption, right? They have to be ambiguous, and it has to be people mind reading, right? It has to be people making assumptions and not like actually using their critical thinking skills and awareness and life experience to actually identify racism that he can't see, right? And that's what it all comes down to. And I've experienced this so much in my actual life. It's so triggering, actually, because in my poem that I wrote, anybody can take a look at it on my YouTube channel, Contraband of Race War. There's a line that says, I was perplexed when my friend of many years came to deny every instance of racism that I decried, with, there's always another possible explanation. It doesn't always have to lead back to the plantation. But often it did, so I started staying quiet. Right? And then that's what I learned is that no matter how much you try to explain to people who are not experiencing the same oppression that you're experiencing, no matter how much you try to describe it in minute detail or universal language or in a way or make a metaphor or make some kind of relation to their own life, they're still going to their default is set on finding an alternative explanation. It's the number one thing. And I'll give you another explanation, another example. And this is I do believe it was race based personally, but we can put that to the side for now. But I was talking to a couple of colleagues of mine not too long ago, maybe a few 2 months, 3 months ago, and um, we were talking about a previous supervisor who I had, who they also had, and they were like, oh, like X, Y, and Z, like they were great, this and that, and I was like, oh well, I wasn't really treated the way that you guys were treated. These are some of the things that happened to me, and their immediate response was to defend that supervisor. Like, and I was just like, I wasn't even trying to criticize them. I literally just told you what happened to me. Like, and their immediate response was to go on the defensive for someone who wasn't even there. And
Yeah.
so it's like, this is like the kind of programming, like they don't even realize they did that, but obviously I could see it, I could perceive it right away. So
Right.
there's these divides in thought. Racism has divided us at the level of thought and life experience. And that is something that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, because it would mean that you would actually have to gain that knowledge only through communicating with someone who is experiencing that, or by
yeah,
reading someone who wrote down what they experienced, but even that can have its limitations. So I think that the implication of that is worrisome to people, and that's why they create these fantastic narratives and these wild explanations of reality in regards to race.
Yeah. It's also incredibly dismissive. Like to imagine that I could have experienced something and not have and not allowed be allowed my own interpretation of what happened, like that you externally can hear what I experienced and tell me that it's not what I thought it was. Like the audacity, the
Yeah, the
level of
audacity, right?
the level of an entitlement that I actually told that reminded me that I told a story on Twitter where I said that I when I was a teenager I encountered a lady who told me that she thought I was pretty, that I almost looked like a white girl if it hadn't been for my skin and my nose. And someone immediately came into the comments and was like, that wasn't what here's one of those stories again. Like, I didn't mention the race of that person at all. And you're defending this person who is completely unknown to all of us based on my description against this notion of racism. Like you're coming here to say that person didn't mean it that way. Like maybe it was a black girl. Like I didn't even say. It could have been anybody. It was just a lady. And I explicitly made a point of not saying that. And they said it anyway, because that default defensiveness is that I can't possibly know what I experienced. They
mhm.
didn't mean it that way. That other people definitely aren't doing that. And that, I mean, I've come to recognize that as people's own defensiveness of themselves rather than anything that has anything to do with me or the person, anonymous person in the story. And so I largely stopped explaining myself, you know, like, because I'm not going to argue with you about whether my perception of what I experienced is valid. We're not going to do that.
Right.
I'm capable enough to have known what I experienced, and your defensiveness about it, or your need to protect yourself from the notion that you might have done something similar once upon a time, and it could have been misconstrued by someone like me. It's not my business.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna defend my experience to you.
See, this is helpful for people like me, and by people like me, I mean cisgender, straight, white males, because I don't have that happen to me. Like, nobody ever challenges whether my evaluation of my experience is real. It's just, and as a result, I can just assume that people do.
You know,
And it's like, it's not that way with everybody.
exactly.
And so it's like, I have to be conscious of that when you tell that story, that, okay, my reality and your reality are not the same. I'm not, and that is a result of systemic racism. It's a result of systemic misogyny, and with contraband, with systemic homophobia. Like, those are real things that I, as a, I don't know what else to call it, but a beneficiary of certain biases, have to realize that those give me a kind of confidence, if that's the right word.
I think that's a great word.
And realize that this is also a result of systemic racism, not just biases against you, but biases for me, and that I benefit from things that you don't benefit from. And so it's not like I didn't work hard to get what I got.
Yeah.
But to also recognize you have to work even harder. And I think a lot of times, like straight white people, they feel like, oh, then you're saying I didn't earn this.
Yeah.
And it's not like people are saying that.
Yeah. No.
They're saying that everybody should have the same opportunity to earn their success that you have.
Precisely.
It's not that you should have less, it's that they should have more. I should give you the same benefit of your lived experience as I assume you would give mine.
That's right. So
Absolutely.
I feel like I want to go one step further from where we had this conversation about differing experiences, because think about this now, right? So now I'm experiencing a different life experience than you. I'm trying to communicate with you about that, and I get shut down and suppressed. So now I feel like I can't even share it, but I'm still experiencing it. I'm still perceiving it, and you're not perceiving it. And so, and then oftentimes, these people who are not perceiving it are people who are in a position of power over you. So now you're trying to navigate this person's lack of perception and your hyper perception, like are going to clash, because like, how do you deal with that, right? Like, you can't really bring it up. You just have to kind of internalize it and take it in, and then walk softly and make sure that you're, dodging and weaving. And that is operating from a different, mindset, from a different point of view, right? Then, and another word that I think that describes what you said is you have security, not just confidence, but you have a level of security in your thoughts, that your thoughts are going to be received, that your thoughts are not going to be rejected, that your experience is not going to be rejected, that it's going to be valued, that it's going to be taken into account, that someone will listen to you. All of these things come into question for racialized Black people in public spaces or in professional spaces. And you have to be aware of it, because if you don't, it'll come out and snatch you up. Like, things will happen. And if you're caught unawares, then that can even make the situation worse sometimes. So it's a very difficult self self-perpetuating issue.
Yeah, I was going to say that because, yeah, I mean, that it's self-perpetuating, because if I say I had an experience and you say, no, I didn't, and I be quiet, then you feel like that somehow bolstered your perspective on that. So now that I'm not willing to argue about it, or that I've been shut down, and I'm unable to argue about it, somehow validates that, no, I didn't actually have that experience.
Right.
I merely imagined it.
So then I go on thinking that I was right and you were wrong, and
Yeah,
which reinforces my experience that you were wrong.
And the whole
exactly.
world will reinforce that conclusion that you came to. So then you have no reason to question it. And
Yes.
then that's how
Then I
you
go
come
right
to
ahead
like, oh, black people
about
must be delusional because everyone's reinforcing the conclusion that I came to. And that's how
right.
you
Right.
get, this whole network and narrative
Yeah.
out there.
When you get together with other people and you come back with that experience, you're like, oh yeah, my friend told me about an experience and I said no, they didn't, and they shut up. And yeah, me too, yeah, oh, that's crazy, they know they're lying.
Exactly.
That I say this a lot, that I feel like one of the most important lessons that just we can have as people, period, but specifically in this case, like just the thought I might be wrong is like
Yeah,
one of the most powerful things a human being can have. That's like that is the root of all kindness as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're human beings, right? We're going to be wrong. Not only we might be wrong, but you are wrong about something. Like
Yeah.
we all
Right.
are.
Oh, for sure.
you know. So, like that's part of the human condition and that's why when I have these conversations, I try to get people to understand like if you're wrong about something, I'm not going to try to make you feel bad about that. Like I'm a teacher, my students are wrong all the time, right? And like if I was just going around like lording myself over on them like, like some kind of evil witch or something and just like laughing, cackling at their mistakes, like what kind of teacher would I be? And similarly, if I was having these conversation on race and somebody was ignorantly talking about it and I kind of used that as like a cudgel against them, what kind of human would I be? And
Yeah,
so it's not about not making mistakes. It's about recognizing that you will make mistakes and being open to acknowledging them and considering them and making changes, and we all have to do that. And it can be difficult for anyone, regardless of your current, status of your thoughts or, whatever class or race or anything you are.
And having the humility to learn from others, like to learn from your experience, to learn, from Tori's experience. Like I, I one thing but the other side of that is I might be right.
right.
Which on your side, you might be right. Um, eh, so don't shut down.
Yeah,
I kind of like to and whenever I'm in a meeting, a business meeting, I always like to pretend I'm the second smartest person in the room, but I don't know who the smartest person in the room is.
I like
Well,
that.
then I believe in myself, but I also believe in everyone else in the room.
I
And I
love that. That is a very cool statement there. You should like patent that or something or
Yeah,
copyright it. That is
put it on a
great.
shirt.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah,
book material. Go ahead.
it feels like a little bit of a detour, but I do want to say that I think that we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner about these discussions, because yeah, people should be able to have humility and be able to face the idea that they're wrong, but we've put racism in the category where it's not just wrong, it's evil. And to be wrong and to have committed some of these, done some of these things that you're hearing about, as stories about racism or people's accounts, and you have to face what you yourself may have done, is it's a difficult proposition because you're not evil, and you know you're not evil, regardless of how terrible anyone is, they don't believe they're evil. And so
right.
to put those two things really against each other and say like you have to maybe come to grips with the way that you've supported or done racism is a really challenging thing because of the way that we've told people racism is evil, and that's why we've experienced kind of this notion of racism, that it's nothing, like it is the clan robes and the N word and nothing else, because
Yeah.
everything else is small stuff, and I do that. So it makes it really difficult. I think that, you know, I believe people need grace, and I can understand, you know, coming from a place of saying that you wouldn't use it as a cudgel, but it already is. To just admit that is to say that some part of evil exists in them, and that's really difficult.
Yeah, as it does in all of us, as it does in all of us, you know. And so the way that I deal with it personally when I'm in these conversations is I'm not gonna I'm not gonna draw any lines between us. I'm not gonna draw any boundaries between us. We're the same, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
so if I'm saying it about you, I'm saying it about myself, and you can be rest assured.
yeah,
And you know, so I'll bring up situations where, like, you know, I said things that were out of line, and I had to like take accountability and responsibility for that, or I did things that I wasn't proud of, you know. And that does give people, like, makes people feel a little bit better to say, oh, like, you know, you're willing to talk on that, like maybe I can, you know, do it too. And I use the same techniques in my classroom with my students as well, you know, like today even, a student, I was working with a student. He's a young black man, sitting in the back corner of the room, you know, and I'm back there working with him, and we're working on a problem together. And the fear this kid had about answering a question I asked him about a problem was so palpable, and
Mhm.
he like literally was frozen with fear and could not speak. Very much a similar situation to where I have conversations with people who have racist beliefs, right? And I kind of like highlight their belief without directly doing it, and then they're like, they kind of come to it on their own, and they're like, oh God, you know, what do I do, you know? And he was in that space, and I just told him, listen, it's okay if you say the wrong thing. Like, if you say the wrong thing, what's going to happen? I'm not going to, like, you know, call you out in front of everyone. I'm not going to, you know, make you feel like you're a bad person. You're not a bad person. And I told him the same thing I said here, which is we're human beings. We make mistakes, especially when we're learning something new or learning something difficult for us. So, making mistakes is part of the learning process, and you have to accept it in order to grow. And he finally answered the question that I asked him. And guess what? His answer was not only right, but very thorough, you know? And I was just
Yeah.
like, brother, think about what you just did there. You're your own worst enemy. You stopped yourself out of fear from answering this question that you not only knew, but you knew it through and through. And he's like smiling and laughing after realizing this, right? Because he's realizing, oh man, how silly that was. And I'm like, listen, we're going to get you over that. That's what we're going to work on this semester. And so now he's had that experience to build off of for the future. And that's just
yeah,
the same thing I try to offer with people with these conversations on race. Have the opportunity to have someone not call you a racist, to not like do this and that, but still challenge you. But like, you know, show that like we're no different, and that like if you want, you can change, you know, and if you want to learn, you can learn, you know, and if you don't, that's your choice, and you can do that too. Okay. And nobody's
yeah.
going to pressure you or anything.
Like, I think we need to take the stigma out of the word racism.
Yes.
And you know, I think it's in How to Be an Anti-Racist that he says everybody is racist. Or what, not everybody is racist. Everybody has racist thoughts, including him. Ouch.
Mm.
Um my cat is
It's
wanting
because
out.
we're taking too much time from from pets. But
So but the idea is like everybody has racist thoughts, and we can either accept or reject those thoughts. And to be an anti-racist starts with recognizing that's a racist thought. I don't have to accept that. I can reject that thought, you know. And
yeah,
so like,
and there's nothing wrong with that. It happens to we all have thoughts that we have to reject, you know, like, or that we choose to reject. And
yes,
so like, yeah, remembering that you're the master of your own sea, you know, you're steering the ship, and that like you don't have to give in to your monkey brain thoughts that like, you know, give you things, or the things that were programmed into you from a young age, you know. You can recognize them and you can let them go, okay, and let them
that,
pass.
this thing with Charlie Kirk where he said, "Oh, I see a black pilot and I have to wonder if they're qualified." And he's like, "But that's not who I am." And it's like, "But no, that is who you are."
Yeah,
You
because you're accepting
verified
that thought. You're
that
accepting that
have
as a
that thought
valid.
and you chose to accept it. So yes, that is who you are, but it's not who you have to be.
Precisely.
You can
Exactly.
say, no, he has the same qualifications, the same pilot license as anybody else, and it is just racist stuff. It is a racist thought to think that he's not qualified, and I choose to reject that thought. Like, yeah, and that's actually very, very empowering when you start doing that. Like, if you
And
know,
it does happen from, the other side too. Like, I mean, we have to like, I feel like we have to be holistic about this, right? So like on my end, right? I may think that what someone said is racist, and this has happened. And then I'll investigate though. This is the difference. For me, if something happens where I'm like side-eyeing it, right? I will investigate. I will find out whether what my initial thoughts about it are correct or not. And if I can't find out, guess what? I say I don't know. I will not make a final judgment. I'm perfectly happy sitting in I don't know space. And, but oftentimes just with a little bit of investigation and questioning and listening, you'll find out the truth. Anyways, just to say that, it's not like we're all walking around here with no tools and no ability to see what's what. Okay. Like, give Black people their agency that you said like we're being denied to like perceive our own reality. How about that? So all right, I'm gonna read the rest of this, guys, and then we'll give our final thoughts and we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for your staying back.